Live from the Export Beer Garden studios, you're listening to the BYC. And as predicted, the understrength Black Caps were summarily dismissed by a totally dominant India. But in the words of skipper Tom Latham, this New Zealand side doesn't indulge in the highs and lows of international cricket, but rather seeks to maintain a steady and consistent performance. We here at the BYC can only concur, as each week we seek to maintain and deliver a reliable source of predictable mediocrity. But there's plenty to discuss, so let's stop dilly-dallying and get into it. Now, Dylan Cleaver, I'm looking at the notes here and it says, lost 3-0 to India. Bit embarrassing, really. I don't think it's embarrassing. India in India, understrength New Zealand side, totally predictable.
I would say the manner of the defeats is quite embarrassing.
Would you?
The scoreline isn't, but yeah, apart from that first game where the Beast almost got us home with just an incandescent innings of real quality.
It was a great night, wasn't it?
If you look at it really, top six, ratchet.
Yeah.
Seamers, terrible. Big opportunity for some of those seamers, look dreadful. And look, when you've got an opposition that are compiling 845 runs across the series for the loss of just 19 wickets at an average of 44.47 per wicket at a run rate of 7.05 per wicket. That's borderline embarrassing.
Paul Ford, misery guts Cleaver's hoed in, as he always... He stuck the knife in, mate. But we're talking about India, in India. You know, it's hardly a seamer's paradise.
No, although their seamers did okay. But look, I think you're right. When you look at, I think Dylan is right, but I don't want to sound as miserable. And so, I think there's been some, on the silver lining is there's been some magnificent verbs used in the aftermath of this series. I found a few: pulverized, crushed, blue washed, outclassed, and annihilated. But to your point, JC, I think when you look at the teams going into this, we needed a miracle. And we essentially got one in that first game in the form of Michael Bracewell. And actually, even that wasn't enough. And unfortunately, we got sort of one, none, and none. And, look, it was entirely predictable that we were going to lose 3-0. But jeepers, I did not really expect that we'd be staring down the barrel at sort of chasing. We were pretty lucky not to be chasing 400 and something in that match last night. And at one point, potentially even 500 was on the cards, which, God, I guess, it could have been worse. But, looking at some of those stats, and, Dylan rattled a few off, but, Shubman Gill getting 360 runs across 3 games, I mean, that is extraordinary. And they had 4 bowlers that bowled at an economy rate of lower than 6. Mohammad Siraj was extraordinary in the series, 3.5 runs per over. We had 1 bowler that bowled under 6 runs and over, which was Mitchell Santner, by a hair's breadth, 5.87, and we had 2 batsmen that averaged over 50. You're going to struggle to win a hell of a lot of series when you're going to bat like that and bowl like that.
Yeah. Well, as I was saying, for me, it was an entirely predictable sort of result. I wasn't surprised in any way, shape or form. I just want to read something that JJ writes, fellas, if I might. Can someone please explain to me what the point of taking Mark Chapman there was and not playing him while Henry Nicholls and Daryl Mitchell were in terrible form? Now, Daryl Mitchell, I say, yeah, fair cop. He's got to have a run. He's been probably our most outstanding batsman over the last season and a half, Dylan. But we've given Henry Nicholls a fair amount of jip on the BYC podcast. He's not doing great, is he?
No, and to that end, Simon P. of Napier also writes, will someone just take the gloves off with Henry Nicholls and call him out for being a bit not good?
Yes. Well, that's not exactly what he said, Dylan, but yeah, I think he went into that very nicely. Yeah, it was very diplomatic of you, which is a change.
Yeah, Henry Nicholls is a funny one because I feel like I defend him, and then after I've defended him, I feel like perhaps I shouldn't have. But if you look at his overall record, he averages 34 in one-day international cricket, which is not bad. His List A record is actually better than his first-class record, which kind of suggests that maybe he should be a little bit better at one-day cricket than he is. Where I think it's a real struggle is that he's played virtually all his ODIs, or a huge percentage of his ODIs at home, where he plays well. Whenever he plays away, I think he averages somewhere around 25, which is just not good enough for a top order, middle order batter. He's only scored one one-day international century. I agree with JJ. I just couldn't believe that they gave Nichols the third ODI after failing in the first two. And predictably, he got that kind of middling score, which might be enough to keep him around for a bit longer. But you've got to remember in that third ODI, no Bumrah, no Sharma, no Siraj. So it was against very much a B team Indian attack.
Well, it's a conundrum, isn't it, Paul Ford? Because he is struggling, Henry Nicholls. I rate Mark Chapman. I think he's a talent. And I fully agree with Dylan. They missed a prime opportunity, at least in that third one day, to give the guy a run, for goodness sakes. I mean, if you're going to take players over there, you've got to give them opportunities. And that for me, wasn't an opportunity missed by the selectors.
Oh, especially when it's a dead rubber, Jace. I think you're absolutely right. I mean, it just seems a completely pointless. And I think, in Nicholls' defence, he didn't have a great series, but still, higher average, more runs per innings than Phillips, Allen, Mitchell, Latham. We had a real issue in that top six batting in that series, apart from a couple of miraculous knocks, really. And I guess to your point, there was the opportunity to step up and put in one of those big overseas innings that we wanted him to, and he didn't. So it's starting to look a little bit. I hate to say it, but it feels a little bit like we're going back to the Black Caps of old, particularly when you take out Williamson and you take out Bolt and you take out Southey. We start to rely on these kind of mercurial performances rather than being consistently good all of the time.
And I do feel like Nicholls has been given a real extended run.
Yes.
Like I feel like there's no player that the Black Caps management and coaching wants to succeed more than Nicholls. And quite frankly, other players who look as talented haven't been given anywhere near the same sort of opportunities as well. So I can understand that kind of angst from our listenership, particularly those who don't reside in the greater Christchurch area. Yeah,
well, look, I've got to be really upfront. I didn't rate Nicholls when he first came in, but I was turned. He's obviously a clever cricketer. He's obviously a fighter. He's pulled us out of some tricky situations earlier in his career. But I look at the talent sort of abounding in terms of the Super Smash and stuff like that. Surely there's an option there in terms of Henry Nicholls. And as mentioned, there's Mark Chapman, who I think is a very talented cricketer. But we've mentioned a couple of times the top six. Let's have a little run of a little look at the run of scores here, Paul Ford. 40-10, 18-9, 24-11, 0, 7-2, 1-1, 36-0, 138, 42, 24-0, and 5. With the DC 100, they averaged 20.4 without 13.5. I'm sorry, but with stats like that, mate, you're not going to win any series.
No, and that Bracewell innings sticks out like dog's balls.
That was Conway's innings, actually.
Devon Conway, yeah.
Because he was down at 7.
Bracewell was at 7.
Good point. So literally, apart from that one innings, not one score above 42. It's that's scary stuff for sure.
Now let's look at the seamers. While we're sort of focusing at the moment on the sort of negatives, I suppose, but there are some negatives. They were appalling.
Yeah.
They got hammered.
They did get hammered, and it didn't look like they had a Scooby-Doo as to how they weren't going to get hammered.
Yes.
And I guess it all came together with Jacob Duffy's, quite momentous feat of conceding 100 in his 10 overs last night. And I don't want to pick on Duffy because it was his first run, and others had gone before him and been smashed as well, but it did seem emblematic of the seam attack as a whole in that series.
Well, I as I say, I've been watching a bit of the Super Smash, quite a bit of it actually, and he's been mentioned a couple of times, and I wonder if he's in the selector's frame of mind or in their thinking. Paul Ford, Lister from Auckland.
He's over there for the T20s.
Oh, he's over there for. Oh, that's good. The tall left armer.
On the cusp.
I rate him, mate. I think he's a real potential quality for us.
Yeah, he's been good. He's been good for a couple of years, and we've got guys that are going for 100 runs in their 10 overs, or I think Shipley was up around 7 runs per over in the series. Lockie Ferguson took 1 for 151 in the series.
But Tick was probably the best bowler, wasn't he?
Yeah, Tickner. I thought so.
And what did he? Yeah, and he was.
And he wasn't great.
Did he get? Yeah, 4 for 164 across from his 24 overs. So, yeah, under 7 runs and over, if that's okay, I guess. And sometimes it might be, but yeah, look, I think there was a real opportunity here too for Lockie Ferguson to step up and be that senior bowler. And I know we've mentioned it before, and I guess we're all living in hope. He's 31 years old. He was bowling quick. He was a bit unlucky, created some chances, but he's one of the guys that is very experienced in Indian conditions, and he didn't look very, very at home in that series.
You take out Tim Southey, Trent Boult, and Matt Henry. That's your 3 best ODI seamers, really, aren't they, at the moment?
Yes, without question.
And you're going to struggle. And
which makes me think that maybe we don't need to shit the bed here, because, we think about this year's World Cup and we're going, oh, my God. And let's be honest, we've done this before. We've sort of, wrung our hands and gone, oh, my God, what do we do? We need changes, etc., etc. I think one of the positives, quite genuinely, of this New Zealand side is their consistency in terms of selection and so forth. But it is a concern that we're not getting those players coming through when your Southeys, when your Henrys, etc., aren't playing.
Yeah, and they're all above 30. Right?
Yes.
So we need some cricketers in the top 6 and in the seam bowling department to demonstrate that they're capable.
Planning.
Yes.
Capable of playing at that level immediately.
But there were some positives, Paul Ford, particularly on the batting front. The beast, Michael Bracewell, 188 runs at 140, strike rate of 144. Devon Conway, 155 at 117, and Santner, 118 runs at 104. Just the 2 wickets for him. But, there were a few positive glimmers. I'm not freaking out about the World Cup. I still feel relatively comfortable. We tend to perform in those sort of scenarios.
Yeah, and I agree, and punch above our weight, etc., etc. But I feel great for the beast, Michael Bracewell. I mean, that was one of those extraordinary knocks. It was absolutely a knock, like that crazy one that he did in the Super Smash for Wellington against Central Districts at Pukakura Park. Except it was in a bloody important match against India, and he nearly pulled it out of the fire. And I reckon it just showed what he could do, and it means that we have, at least out of this series, we've found someone that we can, keep selecting. That's a pretty much a cusp selection, if you like. And you'd have to say that Mitchell Santner responded to the pressure of Bracewell breathing down his neck as a sort of spin bowling all rounder. It's great to have those 2 guys that were firing. I thought both of them were very good.
And one other positive is that when you get to the World Cup in India, you only play India once, maybe twice.
Yes.
There's a whole other bunch of countries there that aren't particularly comfortable in those conditions either.
Now, the 3 T20s start 3 a.m. on Saturday morning before moving to Lucknow on Monday and Ahmedabad on Thursday. The T20 squad, Santner is skipper.
Yep.
Allen, Bracewell, Chapman, Cleaver, Conway, Duffy, Ferguson, Lister, Mitchell, Phillips, Rippon, Shipley, Sodhi and Tickner. I'm predicting another pumping, Paul Ford.
Yeah, there is I think what you're saying, Jace, is there's quite an experimental feel to that squad.
Yes.
There's not a lot of fear factors. Look, I think, again, we're going to rely on these kind of mercurial performances. So could we steal a game or 2? Yep. Look, Glenn Phillips could go mad again. But, look, on paper, it looks like it's going to be a pretty tough assignment for sure.
Well, I'll tell you what, actually, I'm genuinely looking forward to Lister getting an opportunity because I think he'll go great guns. But, we also have to factor in the fact that it is in India. And as I said earlier, it's not exactly a seamer's dream, is it? I mean, there's not much to work with, these flat as pancake bloody wickets. No. So it is a real challenge. Waiting! Let's get into the Ford Trophy, because this could actually have some relevance in terms of the sort of conundrums we're talking about with the New Zealand side and bringing that talent through. Central Stags, 24 with 4 bonus points. Canterbury, 21 with 3 bonus points. Northern District 17 with 1 bonus point, Otago Volt 16, Wellington Firebirds 14, and the Auckland Aces, who are struggling this season, on 8.
Yeah, those bottom 4 teams all play today because CD and Canterbury played 8 games. The rest have played 7. I'm not sure how they're going at the moment. But, yeah, look, if you look, it does take on a bit more increasing importance because we've realised that some of these guys aren't measuring up. So you do look to your next level and where the next players might be coming from. You know, the leading run scorers in the Ford Trophy are Shmulian, D. Cleaver, Nick Kelly, Rachin Ravindra. Are they genuine ODI chances? I would like to think that Dane Cleaver is. I think he's done enough, but
yes.
they seem to see him as a T20 player only. And in the bowling, Brett Randell, Seth Rance, and Henry Shipley are the leading wicket takers. So one of the leading wicket takers, they did give a crack over in India and in Pakistan. I'm not sure I'm seeing what the selectors are seeing with Shipley, but, you know, early days, very early days.
Yeah. Well,
early days, and you know, talk about being thrown to the lions. It's like, hey, we've picked you for the Pakistan series and the Indian series on debut as a big, tall, lanky seamer. That is tough. That is tough. You know, anywhere else but there, I would say.
Will Young averaging 98.5.
Yeah. Did you see that over of his? Oh, we talked about it in the last potty, didn't we? It was a magnificent display of hitting. Geez, you know, and he's such a gifted player too. And I hope that he hasn't sort of drifted out of the selector's mind at all, because I still think he has a lot to offer. Chucked in as an opener. He's never been an opener. No. You know what I mean?
Dreadful.
So hopefully he's
not dreadful. It was dreadful thinking.
Yes. But as we've been pointing out, fellas, you know, it's all very well bagging the people that are there, but what are you going to replace them with? That's the sort of key question. And at the moment, no one's sort of forcing the selector's hand.
No, and the picture does look a lot rosier with Southey and Kane Williamson.
Totally. Well, let's get into the Super Smash, which I've genuinely been enjoying, and I tell you why. I enjoy it because it's a legitimate competition in terms of, you know, these are teams representing their districts and their areas, as opposed to your mashed together, you know, palaver of your Big Bash and the, you know, the IPL and all that sort of stuff. It actually quite genuinely makes a difference to me, Paul Ford, that they're representing their areas. And I've been loving the Super Smash.
Yeah, same. And really, really enjoying it, actually. And it's an interesting point that you make, Jace, you know, and, you know, you do see that in the Big Bash. And I guess it's just the way that cricket's going. And I'm sure we'll talk about this a lot over the coming months. And indeed, we have probably already. But you're going to have this freelance cricketers where they're going to play 2 games for that team. Then they're going to bugger off to the other side of the world and play for another team for 3 matches. And then, you know, so they're kind of drifting in and out of these tournaments. And it does feel like with, you know, without the overseas players, sure, but you know, you've got a real consistency in terms of the pools of players that are being selected for teams. Now, on that, there is an exception, and I guess specifically on the women's side of things, and you've got these 2 Australians that have come in to play for the Wellington Blaze. The Wellington Blaze is sort of beating all comers, always in this duel to the death with Canterbury every season. And this exact thing that we're talking about, Jace, the world has shifted, and there's a couple of Australian internationals by the name of Laura Harris and Charlie Knott, who came in and are playing sort of short-term assignment matches for Wellington Blaze and absolutely annihilated the Canterbury bowling attack and beat, I guess, routinely the second or the other top team in New Zealand by 114 runs on Monday. And, you know, it's interesting because I did see that and I thought, oh, that's great. You know, I'm a Wellington supporter. But a little bit of me went, oh, I don't know if this is what we want to have happen. And you've just called that out, Jason. It's an interesting observation. Does bringing in players for short-term assignments, yes, it makes the competition stronger, but does it mess with the integrity of it, I think? It's an interesting question.
Another question for you on that integrity level, Paul, is that I've been quite enjoying the Super Smash Women, although I do feel like it's just tilted so far. And this is not Canterbury and Wellington's fault, by the way. It's up to others to get to their standard. But they're just so much better than anyone else that some of the games have been
mismatched.
You know, absolute mismatches.
Yeah.
But now, as we know, the White Ferns have gone to South Africa for the World T20. Does the actual end of this competition bear any resemblance to the start of it, and does that affect your enjoyment of it?
Yeah. What I'm really struggling with sport in general is these sort of, as I mentioned earlier, this sort of false mismatch of just putting teams together for this. And for me, it has an air of sort of exhibition sort of cricket. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean anything.
So you're not a fan of the Mumbai Indians, Cape Town?
No.
No.
I'm not a fan of these put together manufactured sides. It doesn't mean anything to me. It's just literally. I mean, yes, you can love the game and just enjoy it, but for me, what makes me watch sport is caring about the result. And I watch so much of particularly in the T20 format, that just is meaningless to me.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Like Trinbago Knight Riders are never going to do a hell of a lot for me, but I might watch them if Guptill's playing or Colin Munro's playing.
Or like, if you're in Paul Ford's shoes and you're massively hungover and you just can't be, and you're just there prone on the couch, I might watch a bit of that shit, but otherwise, no, Dylan!
Speaking of hungover, I understand that the smoke-free laws of New Zealand were tampered with at Robbie's Bar in Riccarton recently. Can you confirm or deny that you're back on the darts?
No, I'm not back on them, but I was back on them there. And the great thing about that, Paul Ford, was it was actually the bar owner who gave me a durry and said, yeah, mate, you can light up inside. It was the highlight, I'll be honest with you, of my broadcasting career to be able to do the big show and have a durry at the same time. It was good times.
I like how you're saying that you're not back on them, but you've gone to a bar, smoked a durry, and then now you're back off them. I mean, I do sense that there's a bit of gamification here for you, where you can be back on and back off them, but only at sort of 5-minute intervals every hour, sort of back on and then off. I don't think that counts, Jace.
Well, you know how the saying goes: when you're on, what goes on tour stays on tour, mate. Waiting. So Minogue and I have adopted a philosophy of when we're away from the family residence, we may indulge every now and a durry or two. Hey, but let's talk about the Kiwis in the Big Bash. I've been watching that a little bit, to be fair. And I don't mind it.
Friendly time zone.
Yeah, I don't care one way or t'other. But Kiwis in the Big Bash, I know Colin's over there. Who else is over there?
Well, no.
Colin and Guppy.
The big man, de Grandholm's still there, but Colin Munro was at the Heat, I think. Now he's gone over to the Emirates to play in that one.
South Africa?
Yeah.
I think. South Africa, isn't he? I'm not sure. One of them.
So we've got Guppy, and he's been...
Yeah, 14s, 11s.
Yeah.
164 runs at 16 and a strike rate of 108, I jotted down.
Yes, so he's not been on the door to get back in, which is... I mean, I know they're different formats, but I did watch that one-day series over there and think, jeepers, when watching Finn Allen, bat pretty poorly.
Yeah.
Were they too quick with Guppy to cut the cord?
Man, I think so.
Yeah, I do.
I think he's a quality player, and he's just one of those guys, Paul Ford, that it's just going to click again, and he'll be in a rich vein of form. And can we afford, actually, to throw away that kind of experience?
Look, I'm going to say I reckon that the selectors got this close to right in terms of the timing. I do think that, I don't know, something's not working as well as it used to with Guppy. But, I'm still not convinced about Munro. Munro had played 8 matches. He's a good example of what we were talking about before, of these freelance franchise operators. 278 runs over there at 35 against some good attacks. Strike rate of 151. And de Grandholm as well. I think he's an absolute banker for the Adelaide Strikers over there in terms of runs. He just looks a class above some of the other players in that comp. And I actually think so. I think de Grandholm and Munro are still 2 contenders that I think we have lost too soon.
Hey, what are the stats on Colin? Do you have the stats there, Paul, at all?
De Grandholm 232 runs at 19, which is, that's okay, and a strike rate of 141, which is scary. He's only bowled 25 overs across 13 games, run for over, I think he's got 5 wickets at runs per over about 9. So, he's right in the thick of it as a batsman and that lower order pummeler, and then bowling a few overs each game to sort of fill up that fifth bowling spot.
He started really well for Adelaide, but he has struggled a little bit in the last couple of weeks.
Right, okay. So at the final of the World Cup, your choice is Guppy or Finn Allen, Dylan?
ODI or T20?
ODI.
Yeah, see, this is where I'm going to go away from Paul here. I would have Guppy.
Paul?
I don't trust Finn Allen yet.
God, you're a hard man.
Yeah.
Well, I'm picking you.
I'll go Finn Allen.
Yeah, okay.
I'll go Finn Allen because I've got a huge crush on Finn Allen.
Yeah,
that's not a great scientific reason, is it?
Massive crush.
Hey,
yes.
A guy that we didn't talk about, and maybe we need to keep a very close eye on him over the next few weeks, is Dean Foxcroft from Otago.
Yes.
There's an article in the ODT today, actually, and it's talking about the fact that they were a bit unsure about whether, when he got stuck in South Africa and he very deliberately didn't play for any other teams to reset things, they think that he is going to be able to get through, and that they're going to be able to get an exemption for him around those years that he's missed. So effectively, the clock will hopefully not reset for him to become available for New Zealand.
What we wondered last week.
Yeah. We had a bit of a chit chat about him last week.
In about a year or so. So very, very promising signs. He is a flipping gun, as you guys mentioned last week. Absolutely right.
Yeah. We'll definitely keep an eye out on that. Now, you weren't here last week, Paul, so we didn't have news or ruse. And just to remind the listeners out there, Hoyte J taking out that news or ruse last year and absolutely squashing Dylan Cleaver. But right now, it's time for Paul Ford's news or ruse.
Yes, it is. And I'm going to take a new format into 2023. So we're going to run it as a challenge format. So there's effectively going to be a belt. I'll come up with what that belt will be constructed of next week. But effectively, think about it as a Ranfurly Shield challenge that happens each week.
Because I got sick of winning.
Yeah, well, I got sick of coming second. Should I say that? Jace, did you get sick of coming third, or did you enjoy it?
Oh, mate, nothing wrong with bronze.
On the podium, third out of 3. Yeah, not bad. Okay, there we go. An interesting nerdy thing is developing in the UK that could have implications here as the Professional Cricketers Association joins what is called Project Red Card, the battle for sports people to take more control of their data. The aim is to help athletes, including cricketers, control and monetize the data being collected about them and their performances. Professional cricketers' data is being processed and sent all over the world currently without the knowledge and understanding of the players. It's being processed by companies outside of cricket for commercial purposes with little or no funding being returned to the players. The aim is to clean everything up so the individual is happy with the data that's being collected and it's a fair reflection of the individual. One contentious point here is that Muslim sports people who gambling is condemned under their faith should be able to control whether bookies can use and profit from their data. The PCA Chief Operating Officer, Daryl Mitchell, said, "We believe this is the correct time in cricket to resolve and progress the area of personal data rights in cricket." Be interesting to see whether this one reaches across into New Zealand as well. Number 2. Sky Sports commentator Ken Laban's called out former colleague Ian Smith for taking a swipe at the rise of female, Māori and Pacific commentators on his way out the door. Announcing his departure from Sky after 23 years, the former New Zealand wicketkeeper said Sky had a purpose and direction towards Māori and Pacific input and, of course, female sport like never before. So it was mutual that we part ways. Laban said he was surprised and disappointed that a commentator of Smith's standing would make such comments. He said, "Our broadcast group now reflects what our community is like more than it did previously. They were very interesting comments from someone who's been deep inside Sky for a long time, and yet the fact that he would do it in the form of a press release to ensure maximum exposure was pretty interesting too," he said. And number 3, Uganda has pulled off a massive upset in the Women's Under-19 Cricket World Cup in South Africa, defeating the West Indies by 4 wickets in Potchefstroom on Sunday. The East African country, 27th in the ICC Women's T20 rankings, chased down the 71-run target with 10 balls to spare, knocking the West Indies out of the inaugural tournament. Ugandan spinner Sylvia Usabiyamana took 4 for 20, ripping through the Windies' top order. The West Indies were 5 for 38, and then Marie Tumakunde came on and took 4 for 8. The West Indies were all out for 70, bowled out in less than 17 overs there we go. Bit of excitement and action over there in Springbok country.
Can I just say on the broadcasting front, it's never a great idea, in my opinion, to drop a bomb after you leave.
No.
You know what I mean? Yeah, the best advice my father gave me in my life was never burn bridges, son, never burn bridges.
I thought it was mean-spirited too.
Yes.
He was basically begrudging these people the same opportunity that he got as a former player with no broadcasting experience.
Exactly. I'll kick us off.
Yeah.
I'm going to go
on then.
Story 1, Daryl Mitchell. He's not called Daryl Mitchell.
Well, that's bloody interesting, Jason, because I glanced at you then, knowing that you'd think that, but Daryl Mitchell was actually played for Worcester for years, I believe. Not our Daryl Mitchell.
Can I change?
So I reckon that might be true. But did you say that Ian Smith had worked for Sky for 24 years, Paul?
23? Yep.
Oh, 23, yeah, he has worked for 23. Oh, shit, I don't know what I'm going to go then. Oh, crap, that was my thing. I thought you said 24. I'm going to say it is story number 2.
And why?
Because it wasn't Ken Laban, it was Willie Jackson.
Be great if a minister of the Crown did come out and say, enter into that debate. I love this. I've accidentally received the belt myself because it wasn't Uganda, it was Rwanda in the Women's Under-19 Cricket World Cup. I can't believe you guys haven't got your Sylvia Usubayamana posters up in the office.
Well, I was going to say that was where you got a roll and the pronunciation was wrong.
I think that
it's difficult. It was difficult.
Dylan, given that you're one of New Zealand's top sporting journalists, I think it's appalling you missed that, mate.
Yeah.
It's an absolute shame on you.
Well, the weird thing is that Rwanda is a former Belgian colony, and the Belgians aren't renowned for their
cricket.
Cricket.
Hey, this is going to be good. It's time for Dylan Cleaver's Obscure Players of the 90s.
Obscure Players of the 90s.
You're right, it is going to be good. And I've picked, we're back down to the bottom of the country now, and I've picked out a guy called Simon Ford with an E. And before we get much further on, I want to make clear that it's not to be mistaken for the Simon Ford, also with an E, who was the famous medievalist who succeeded Catherine.
Oh, yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Catherine Coots is
I was so confused there for a minute.
Yes, yeah, so like, hang about. It's not that medieval dude, is it?
No, it's not. No, but Simon Ford is interesting. He's from Tuatapere, which is the sausage capital of the world. But can it be called that anymore since they shut the butchery on the main street?
No,
I agree. Can't be. But it is also the gateway to the southern Fiordland. So it's got something else.
I've shot one thing in my life, and it was a deer on my stag do, and it was in Tuatapere. But that's a story for another day. So there you go.
Did you turn it into sausages? Venison sausages?
I didn't, but the guy who's Jimmy White, whose farming block that I shot it on, he definitely did with his wife Shirley. So yeah, they got right into it. So great part of the world.
Good stuff. Well, Simon Ford with an E played 10 first-class games for Otago. He also played some List A games, but we'll concentrate on first class. He scored 299 runs at an average of 16.6, and with his right arm off spin, he took 4 wickets, best bowling, 2 for 31, average of 37. He probably was just as famous in Dunedin as a police detective, where he was for a long time, and then he became the high-performance manager for Otago Cricket. But now, I believe, as of last year, he's just started as the South Island Territory Manager for Stockade, which makes the staples that you put your
fence posts on. Yeah, nice.
You're familiar with the product?
Oh, yeah, totally, mate. I'm putting up fences all summer long, Dylan.
Yeah, now
You're a great fencer, aren't you?
Yeah, massively so. Massively so.
So Simon Ford is a keen fisherman, and his signature dish, if he has people round to his house, is marinated duck breast on a carrot parsnip and kumara mash.
Ooh. That sounds good, man.
Good research.
That's our obscure cricketer of the 90s, Simon Ford with an E.
Nice. Right now it's time for Paul Ford's Violence Corner.
Paul Ford's Cricket Violence Corner.
Yeah, it's an on-field thing this week. Perth Scorchers fast bowler Matt Kelly copped an outfield throw to the face before falling to the ground in scary scenes in the Big Bash this week. There were initially fears for Kelly's safety after he lay unmoving on the turf, but after going from the field, it was reported he'd only suffered a laceration and was undergoing concussion protocols. He was I don't know if you guys saw this. He was standing at the bowler's end, waiting to get a throw that got heaved in from the outfield. And the ball cannoned into the batter's, it was Aaron Finch. It crashed into his bat and then ricocheted up into Kelly's snoz and cheekbone at pace. So, yeah, blood pouring out of his nose, got sat up and assisted from the field and replaced in the game under the concussion protocols. The worst thing was what the DJ did. So this was a home game for his team. The DJ played Stayin' Alive and then followed it up with Shake It Off, as he was trying to recover from a bleeding laceration, concussion, head injury in the middle of the pitch. So, it just shows that there are more than one asshole in Australia, and some of them are DJs. The other part that happened in the
a lot
game,
of them are DJs,
which I thought you'd be interested in, was AJ Ty also left the field. He had a terrible game, but at one point he went to take a catch and it went straight through his hands and hit him right in the face, left him bleeding from the nose, and he had to go off. But that's actually fair enough because he should have caught it. I think that's different to a rebound.
Absolutely. It wasn't DJ A-hole himself, was it?
Unconfirmed.
Yeah.
Unconfirmed.
Hey, well, let's get to your correspondence. Paul, if people want to get in touch with the BYC, what do they need to do, mate?
Flick us an email to byc@beigebrigade.co.nz or slide into the DMs of the Beige Brigade or Alternative Commentary Collective on the gram or on Facebook, and we'll chuck them in the inbox for the boys to have a yarn about.
Topper Correspondence of the Week, brought to you by Leader NZ's Lasagna Topper.
Beautiful. Hey, this is from Dan S. Fellas, I write to you from the lounge chair sipping on a cold one, lazily zapping flies with my electric fly swatter, hoping South Africa will spoil Australia's fun by knocking the stumps over before they can get another bloody century. As I was watching, I was struck by just how hateable every Australian face in that team is. Not a single one of them would I trust with a secret. As soon as a private detail of my life was shared with them over a beer, it would be spread like wildfire around the office. I just know it. They have the look of slander on their faces. But I realise that Cameron Green's face annoys me the most because he reminds me of an old flatmate who stole my custom fantail cricket bat. Bastard. I want to ask, which Australian face annoys you the most and why? Please be specific. If there is a person they remind you of, let us know. Cheers, Muzz.
Yeah, well, I can't go past the classic Steve Smith.
Oh.
Just slap a ball. It's like
it's
like the face that never grew up. And they just whine.
Yeah, he was on the sort of commentary, how they mic up the players. Yep. Jesus, he was tedious. Yeah. God.
He's betting like a god at the moment.
Oh, I know, but God, bloody tedious. So it's dry is how I describe him. Who for you, Paul Ford?
There's a couple. I mean, this is tough. This is a tough question. I've got to say, Dan, I feel like I really need to sit down and interview myself about this. But two that come to mind. One's on the periphery of the Australian team, and it would be Matthew Wade. I find his face incredibly punchable. And I know he's had testicular cancer. I know he's got a daughter that's really sick, and I should like him, but I just find everything that he does a bit whingy and a bit whiny and a bit niggly. Probably the only good thing that he did was sort of get into a bit of a shoulder barge with Davey Warner the other day. And I guess that's what led me to the Punchable Faces Brigade. And it's very difficult for me to go past David Warner. I stupidly still follow him on things like Instagram. My kids follow him on TikTok and so on. And he's really, really annoying on the field. He's really annoying off the field. And he's really, really annoying on social media. So his latest effort, I don't know if you've seen, he's superimposed his own face onto a Forrest Gump promotion. So he's every sort of version of Forrest Gump. So annoying in every sense of the word. So, yeah, for me, it's Wade and Warner.
Very cool,
indistinguishably annoying.
Very easy for me. Labuschagne. It's purely on his eye spacing scenario. God, I hate his face. He's got really weird eyes, Labuschagne.
They're very close together, aren't they?
Yeah. And he's so Australian looking.
Yet he's South African.
Yeah, I know. Hey, Congrats to the Last Man Stands team, still got it in Auckland Division 2 for winning the January ACC Export Team Shout. Their prize pack will be delivered to the Rosmini grounds tomorrow before their game. Next up is the February Shout. To enter your team, text LMS3236 for your chance to win your team an export prize pack, and ACC merch. Remember, only Auckland teams can enter, thanks to our great mates at Export. And thank you to all our listeners out there for listening to the BYC podcast. We'll be back same time, same place next week. You take care out there, and we'll see you later.